to the inaugural podcast episode of a podcast that I've been thinking about for a while. Don't have a title yet, but there are two working titles. So give me your comments in the comment section of what you think would be a better title. One of them is the Jobs Theory podcast. Another one is Your Customer Doesn't Care. And I'm kind of leaning toward that one. So here's what's going on. I just went on a lovely vacation with my mother-in-law and my family. And we went out to San Diego, went to SeaWorld, Old Town San Diego, and the Mormon Battalion Visitor Center, which was awesome. But, one of my favorite things about vacations is really figuring out like the history of the area. I also really love the food. And this is kind of a hangover from my 2-year mission trip in Taiwan. Chinese, Taiwanese culture, they love food. And so one of the things that I absolutely wanted to do was to go to San Diego and get what they call the California burrito, which is fabulous. It's got French fries, guacamole, pico, beans, carne asada steak, and cheese. And it's excellent. It's delicious. And so we were at Old Town San Diego, and we were looking around, and I was talking with people, asking them where the best California burrito was, and they sent us off to this little hole in the wall Mexican place, which those are always the best. And it was a good meal. We really enjoyed the food. The next day, maybe it was 2 days later. Yeah, no, the next day we went out to eat at Denny's because that's where my mother-in-law wanted to go. And I'm not throwing shade at her or at Denny's. They're both great. They're practically American institutions, Denny's. But what happened is I was thinking about this and something really hit me. The job that my wife and I were hiring that California burrito, carne asada fries, all of that stuff to do was different than the job my mother-in-law was hiring Denny's to do. And people might think that this is kind of strange, but bear with me. I've been a huge fan of what's called jobs theory for a really long time. Jobs theory is really simple. It's that your customers don't buy your product or service. They hire it to help them make progress in their life. Jobs theory has underlying energies that are functional, social, and emotional, right? So if we think about these two different meals, the functional job of the California burrito was to fill me up. The functional job of the Denny's meal was to fill me up. But the social and emotional aspects of those two different meals were different. And that's why we weren't even considering Denny's on the first day, but my mother-in-law really wanted to go to Denny's on the second day. The social aspect of the California burrito job was help me experience San Diego culture, me see what it's like to live in San Diego and what this experience is like. And emotionally, I wanted to feel adventurous and get exploring, stuff like that. For my mother-in-law, the job of Denny's was totally different. She wanted to feel comfort after a long day. She wanted to feel like she was back at home. And socially, she wanted someplace that was going to be, not a lot of people, kind of quiet, laid back. Like that was all part of this job that she was hiring Denny's to do. Now, on the face, you might think that Denny's is competing with this taco shop that we went to, but the truth is that they really weren't. Denny's was competing with places like Carl's Jr. at that point, or McDonald's, someplace that she could go and sit down and get a meal that felt familiar. For us, the taco shop was competing with going and getting a meal on the beach, or driving to San Diego's Little Italy and getting food there. Like there was no direct competition between these two restaurants. The jobs that we were hiring them to do was different. And this is why it matters, because businesses who understand the job that their customer is hiring them to do, the progress, we say, the progress their customer is hiring them to make, can design their strategy, their marketing, their operations around helping their customer make progress. And when they do that, the speed at which their customer is making progress increases. And what does that do? Well, it increases your sales because your customers see that you're actually trying to help them. They go out and they refer more people over. You'll get more support from those customers, and you'll know how to message your marketing in a way that drives conversions instead of reduces them. It's a really important distinction here. And then you can combine this knowledge with things that Rita McGrath calls transient advantages, and that's a podcast for another day. But what I want to do in this podcast, I don't want it to be too long, 15 to 20 minutes long at the most, except when I do guest interviews, which we'll kind of play that by ear. But what I'd really like this to be is, we have a conversation about jobs theory through the lens of what's happening in today's headlines. So, this is probably going to be a weekly or bi-weekly podcast, and we'll go through, look at a headline, discuss the story, and then I'll bring out how jobs theory applies to this headline, to this business, and strategically what that business needs to do in order to be successful. So the first headline that we're going to talk about today was from Fortune magazine, and it says Airbnb's CEO isn't happy with how the business has grown and wants hosts to lower their price. We need to get our house in order, and I'll be sure to include the link in the description for this, or in the, just so that you can look at this. So what did the article say? Well, the article says that Airbnb is getting hammered. They got profiled by Substack that wasn't very friendly. They are losing market share now to different people. And, the CEO is saying we're getting hit hard because we didn't have strong enough systems to support a business of our size. We grew too fast and went too far. And now we need to scale it back and kind of remodel what we're doing. Which is fine. I think that that's actually based off of what he talked about is a fair assessment. The article shared a Twitter thread that was basically people complaining about Airbnb. And one of the things that really stood out to me was somebody says, the best thing about hotels is that they're cheaper than Airbnb and you don't have to do any chores. And that's one of the key things that people have been complaining about. The Airbnb's team went over 15,000 customer complaints and just reviewed them and said, what is going on with these complaints? Why are we getting these complaints? Trying to understand them and what they need to do about it. So they're seeing a lot of cracks in their ops and losing market share to competitors. Now, their competitors in this instance, it's not Vrbo, it's actually hotels, and just not going on the trip. And what they've described in this article is basically that hosts might be getting too greedy and might be charging too much for a night's stay. And so customers are leaving, which is understandable. If we go back to this idea of jobs theory, what is the opinion of jobs theory on? Well, jobs theory says that you have functional, social, and emotional reasons for making a purchase decision. These are energies that underlie the purchase decisions that you make. So how do you make purchase decisions to do that? In this instance, when Airbnb was developing, one of the key reasons why people were doing why they were choosing to switch from regular hotels to Airbnb, because Airbnb was a lot cheaper. You could spend 1/5 the cost for a 1-bedroom in somebody's house and be able to go on these to these conferences that you would have liked to attend, but a hotel room was too expensive. You can read all about this in Clayton Christensen's book, Competing Against Luck. He talks about this. And one of the key things is that people were switching over to that because they were getting actually a better experience in these people's rooms or in renting out a person's house than they would have anywhere else. They were getting the opportunity to sleep in a more comfortable bed, have a more comfortable bathroom situation. In some instances, have a full kitchen instead of just like a half kitchen, so they could go to the grocery store, buy some food, and save themselves some money that way. Lots of benefits that were going in here, but the main point that they were trying to drive was this cost leadership benefit. So when I'm reading in these comments that people are having a really difficult time justifying spending the amount of money that they are at Airbnbs versus hotels, if I'm the CEO or a manager at Airbnb, this is setting off alarm bells for me, because I'm not worried about the social and emotional jobs here as much as I am worried about the functional job. Because as soon as you stop doing that functional job, people bail, and that's what they're finding. People are just going to hotels, or they're not going on these trips. The problem was that these scams were going on and things like that. So bringing this all back, functionally, Airbnb has not been doing the job that its customers have been hiring it to do. They've been hiring Airbnb to give them a cheap alternative place to stay when they go on vacations or when they go to business conferences or other things, so that they can actually attend these conferences. And cost leadership was really important in terms of helping these customers make progress. When you take that out of the equation, throw scams in there, make it so that you can't see the pricing and that you're getting hit with secret fees, which used to be the case with Airbnb, was that you wouldn't see the cleaning and booking fees and all of that stuff until it was too late. It really was a recipe for disaster for Airbnb. Well, they've since gone back and they're trying to fix it. So now, how can Airbnb get back on the right track? Functionally, they've got to focus on making price the thing that they're competing on. Price leadership is cost leadership is really important to Airbnb's users. So they've got to be transparent from the upfront about the price. They've got to be very, very clear about, getting scammers out of there, because if you lose all your money to a scammer, good luck, going to these other places and continuing to patron Airbnb. Another one is they've got to focus on actually reducing the cost. And that's in the headline. It talks about wants hosts to lower their prices. That's really vital. I can understand spending a couple $100 renting out a 3-bedroom, penthouse or something like that. I can get that. But if I'm renting a 1-bedroom with a shared bathroom, I'm not willing to pay more than a certain amount. Most people aren't. And so, I recognize that hosts have a job that they're hiring Airbnb to do, but they've got to reach a sort of compromise where both jobs are being met. And that's the tricky part, and why most shared marketplaces like Uber, like Lyft, like Airbnb, like Turo, they fail because they focus on one job over another job. And so, Airbnb has got to find a way to keep these rentals booked so that these homeowners or these hosts aren't losing out on a bunch of revenue by lowering their costs, and possibly giving them training on what they can do to increase what they take home. Because that's really a job that these hosts are hiring Airbnb to do, is, give me more money in my pocket at the end of the day. So, we're right up there at our 15-minute mark for a first episode. Not too bad. Just recapping. So Airbnb is getting hit hard because they've forgotten about the job that their customers are hiring them functionally to do, which is to give them a low cost place to stay so that they can go on vacations or go to business conferences and other things when they want. To fix that, Airbnb needs to focus on reducing prices, be more transparent with their pricing, and getting rid of scammers, which is stuff that they're already doing. I think that if they were to go the next step, it would be to understand the differentiators between the jobs at that point, between someone who's booking a single bedroom versus someone who's booking a whole home rental, and potentially split those further, maybe even differentiate the brand. That's hard to say at this point, but at least being clear on why someone is renting a one bedroom communal bath kind of a situation is why someone is renting a full, like I talked about, a 3-bedroom penthouse. um, it can make your marketing much more effective, and it can allow them to, from a social and emotional aspect, support the hosts in a better way. This is Zach Stuckey signing off. Just a reminder, guys, your customer, they don't care about you, they care about making progress. So go